Thank you so much, Vanessa. I have never heard anyone do such awesome whale impersonations ever. Every scientist in this room needs to figure out what sound they need to impersonate and tell your story with a bit more clicks or something that's like that. I think that's amazing. Vanessa, can we start maybe with something? Tell us something about you that the public doesn't know, and in particular, your science journey.
I always wanted to be a dolphin trainer. I did, because I grew up on a farm outside of Canberra, and I did become a dolphin trainer. And it was amazing, it was great, and then it was not everything I thought it would be. So then my journey went another way. And then when I finished my PhD, I couldn't find a job. And so I removed all my credentials from my resume, still couldn't find a job. And then thankfully I was offered a position looking at illegal wildlife trafficking detection. And I said to the people, this is in collaboration with the federal government, Taronga Zoo and Rapiscan Systems. And I said to my then boss, I said, oh, I've just got one problem, I'm pregnant. And they're like, yeah, that's okay, well, when are you going to start? And I've been working on that project as a side hustle for the last 4 years. And we were the first in the world to create illegal wildlife trafficking detection algorithms for the detection of Australian fauna, animals. And now we're doing a marine component. So in other words, I didn't know I had transferable skills, and you guys might not either. So just think about them, because when you're given tricky times, you've got to reinvent the wheel and navigate your own path.
Thank you. And, you know, earlier this morning, Kathy Foley came in and spoke to us about the career pathway of women and how there's a little bit of a plateau in our life sometimes when we're having families and children. And so that is really encouraging to hear that you were able to continue to work even though you were pregnant and starting a family. And I'm going totally off script here, but can you tell us, just for, you know, we're a room full of women. We are at various stages of our career. We are all juggling a million things, including family. Just really quickly for us, what does it mean for you to do all these extraordinary things? You do the science and you do all the engagement with the community, but you still have a family and running your own life and staying sane. Tell us a little bit about how you keep it all in balance.
I think the thing is that I never thought, what I'm doing now, I never thought it would be a thing. And it's still, I don't know where it's going. But all I know is that I'm doing the things I love. And I am a mum of 2 kids, 2 and 4. And the thing is, when I first had my first son, I hid the fact that I had children, no social media, nothing, because I knew I'd be unemployed. And I still pretty much am. I'm only affiliated with universities, but having children has actually been, for me personally, it's changed the way I do my science, my research, because I'm not thinking about tomorrow, I'm thinking about years ahead. And I remember there's this animal that I got in Tonga, this humpback whale, mum and calf, and I looked at it the day after I had my first son, Hugo. I looked at it and went, I just had such a different perspective. So the ups and the downs, the lows, the highs, we all have them. If you're juggling children, it is a bit tricky. And if you're not, that's fine. And regardless of our sex as well, boy, female, whatever, you need to just know that other people, there's always people see something and then they're quick to judge. Just don't judge. You need to make sure that you know that people are human. And when I know there's some fabulous, wonderful women in this room, particularly who I love, and I know that they've always been nothing but kind, and you never forget people who have been kind to you because they help lift you up. And that's really important. So going through this journey, I'm still navigating it, and you probably all are too. And that's okay, because some of us don't have the answer to everything. And knowing that is also very important. If anything, I think that's a really good point you brought up.
Thanks. Let's get into the science. So I want to begin in the wildlife, and tell us, you know, the animals that you study have incredible sensing abilities, right? Tell us what we haven't learned yet from the sensing abilities of animals and nature. What have you seen that technology could learn more from?
Well, the fact that, so when it comes to whales and dolphins and porpoises, they do use sound to communicate. And so for some, they're the high frequency communicators like the sperm whales in the dark, deep depths sounds. And then the low frequency communicators like the humpback whale, which is a low, long distance. Think of it like that. we as scientists can record those sounds and then see them on a sonogram. So you can say, okay, this Jack's making this noise, or what they sing on the East Coast this year will be the hottest 100 in the male world this year, and the next year, the humpback whales are ditching that song, but they'll pick it up elsewhere. We can see that, but now thanks to AI, we're able to have computers work out, this guy's making this sound and this is similar to this, and we're sort of decoding what they're saying. But the reality is we just don't know what they're saying, right? And an algorithm might be fabulous and that's really cool. We should be merging it. But there's so much that we just don't know. And I will be the first to say, I don't really know much about whales and dolphins, and even to how they navigate. How does a humpback whale know to go all the way from Antarctica? I know people here have been to Antarctica. And then how do they know to come all the way back? We still don't know that. We know bits of it. We don't know the full picture. And so that means we as scientists, no matter what you study, should still be curious and really take time to think about the unknown, because it's so incredibly wonderful. And even when we see whales stranding, I know it's awful, but there's still that mystery of why does this happen? How can it happen? And the general public want to know why as well. And I must sound like an awful scientist because I'm like, okay, clock's ticking, got to get rid of this one, sort this one out. And that's just how it goes, right? So there's so much that we don't know. Technology is helping us learn more, like what the behaviours of animals, interactions with other animals, seeing things differently. If only you could have an underwater drone that could follow whales for a huge time, or we place tags on the back of whales and shoot things into them, which is now people are going off that kind of thing. And I'm kind of pro. We don't really need to touch them to learn from them. But in some cases, the tagging of some whales have really helped us work out where, say, for example, blue whales go. So we know some blue whales go from the west coast into Indonesian waters and then come back down. So it's really interesting, but it's that pros and cons, like when you go for animal ethics. Are you going to do this to an animal and why? Make your case, right? So, yes, so there's so much we can learn. We should really emphasize the period that we're in, where we have a lot of room for collaboration and growth. It's an exciting thing, and maybe, just maybe, we come closer to learning what whales are saying or where they go.
You just mentioned the word collaboration, so I'm going to jump on it, okay? Because it's clear from your citizen science project and your work with the Gamay Rangers that collaboration is really critical to the way you work. Can you tell us a little bit about the nexus between collaboration and technology? Because I think what a lot of scientists might perceive is that it's a very insular, I'm working here, I'm working on a breakthrough, or I'm working on something radical, or I have my team, or I have my immediate sphere. Your sphere is much larger, and you really pull collaboration into science and technology. Tell us why, and the challenges, and why is it so critical to your work?
Well, a lot of my work, surprise, surprise, is unfunded. So I'm just creative. And so that means bringing in people along for the ride, which is a good thing. And when it came to the drone research, which we now have tools, that was a world first because they didn't exist. Do you think I flew the drones? No, I still can't fly those drones. What we did is I collaborated with industry experts, and we even had someone at a school at Bondi, a high school kid. He was just wonderful. He vacuum molded all the electronics. So there's people here who'd be tweaking about hearing things like vacuum molding. I didn't know that was a thing. Apparently you get plastic and you suck it up. So there's all these things that are so important to have been able to do what I do. And I acknowledge that team collaborations is fabulous. And when you've got a good team, it's really helpful. And a lot of the stuff I was doing pre-kids, I got to say, was a little bit easier. Now with children, it's a little bit more tricky. But it's just in my path now that I'm getting approached for certain things. And also being a mentor to a few of the Gamay Rangers, I'm able to deliver. I think this comes down to the leadership thing. Allow them to, and other students to give them a go, but lead them in an appropriate way, because I always really love it when people take the time to share knowledge and to help you go forward. And that's really important. Even like, this sounds very random, but even when the doctor at the hospital taught me how to breastfeed properly, I then was able to do it, right? So that's the first thing that came to mind. So it's like really, if you're taught and you're able to share knowledge and you do it in a great way, you then create this community around you. And unfortunately, elephant in the room, not everyone's on the same page as you. And if someone's looking at what you're doing and they go, they've got a problem with it, that problem's often with them. Okay, so just acknowledge that. We're all adults and there are those challenges. So collaboration is not always easy. And I've had people come to my drone pilots away from me trying to get information, and then they go off and then they publish on it and they don't include anyone. And that's disgusting. And if that happens, I'm the furthest away that I'll move from that person or that thing. So when you're collaborating, see the bigger picture and just be humans, be nice about it. Because when you're working as a team and you don't necessarily need to be in the industry, you go outside, all these amazing things can happen. And I think it's in the values of a lot of big companies to go beyond just their backyard, to show that there's other, and internationally as well. In Australia, we're very geographically challenged, I agree. When I went and represented, well, I wasn't representing Australia, but I went as to the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization in Italy. Every lunchtime we would hang out and talk about different whale things from different cultures, from different parts of the world. I just love that. We just don't have that here. And I really think we need more of that.
I really liked how you stepped totally outside of your field to bring information in to inform your field, right? So you're collaborating with people from different fields, different areas, different sectors, even high school kids. So that is incredible. And I think that's a real message for all of us here is think outside of your universe and what you can achieve doing that. I wanted to ask you, dig a little bit into your work with the Gamay Rangers, if I can. So I mentioned earlier that sensing is about information, and we collect a wealth of data from that information, and we can interpret it in a scientific way. Can you share with us from your experience with the Gamay Rangers, what did the information not tell you that you learnt from the Indigenous communities? What do we miss? We've got great sensing, we've got great algorithms. What do we miss, even though we have great technology? If you've got an example,
we are so focused on getting the tech, the data. Get data, it's good. You know, even when you go through university, get as much data as you can. Go, 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 go. But sometimes when you stop to tell a story differently, you can acquire some really cool information. And when I was writing my book, Humpback Highway, and this is not just a plug for it, by the way, but literally, people didn't know why the whales turn up in Australian waters. That's why I wrote my first kids' book, and then that's why I wrote Humpback Highway, because they didn't know. And that's okay if you don't know, by the way. We're not all whale scientists. And so when I wanted to tell the Indigenous perspective, as a Canberran, I would go down to Eden and learn about the killer whales that used to hunt with the whalers. That was really cool, but it was always the Europeans. My family's from Europe. Like we're cool, but we're not that cool, right? And so I wanted to tell the First Nations component to that. And so working with the Indigenous Rangers here in Sydney was an opportunity to learn about how they viewed the world here. And I'm not going to speak on behalf of them, but essentially the stories that the team had were incredibly important. And I was like, wow, how have we not told this? And in fact, embarrassingly, how have I not had a First Nations component in my PhD thesis? I didn't. Well, there was no talk of it, and it was kind of silly. So the information held within members of the community is incredibly powerful for my research in particular, because they can share knowledge of when and where animals have been and where they've not been, and now where they're going. So it's a great way forward, and I'm hoping to be very instrumental, at least in my field, in documenting that, both the science and also the citizen science, which I was from many reviewers back in the day going, we don't want people knowing that they can do this. It's like, come on, reviewer two. Yes, you do. And then to have the First Nations perspective, I think it's a nice respectful thing as well. So, and also having them as co-authors. Yeah.
And it's incredible that they can, you know, the stories that First Nations people tell us are our history, but the history of the land and history of the sky and all that. And all those are the missing links, isn't it, in terms of where the science can actually be very powerful. Okay. So I just want to extend on that with the illegal trafficking piece, right? Because tell us a little bit how you bridged from research to raising awareness about illegal trafficking. What are we illegally trafficking in Australia? I didn't even know we had this problem.
Oh, yeah. So I've been a chief scientist on an illegal wildlife trafficking detection program for nearly 5 years now. And unfortunately, people will take out Australian animals and send them overseas. The reasons being medicinal trade, people get a lot of money for reptiles overseas. We have a reptile called the shingleback lizard. Their head looks like their bum. They're amazingly cute and they're really easy to pluck out of the wild, so I found, because I nearly ran over one in Western Australia last year. I literally picked it up and moved it off. And so people can get a lot of money for them overseas. It's a biosecurity problem. It's a zoonosis problem. If I mention the word COVID, people might go, oh yeah, where animals can give us something. And so as part of a lot of my work is protecting Australian marine wildlife under our federal protection, I just simply moved that focus as well, complementary, but to the terrestrial world, where I was able to bring my skill set on to then manage a project which has been building algorithms for detection using 3D scanners. So you know how you go through the airport and you put your bag into the thing? You don't need to take your drink bottle out anymore, right? That's a 3D X-ray scanner. And so you can look in and around items. So essentially we've been using dead animals and scanning them in different positions so the computer can go, oh, I know what that is. And we've got successful algorithms that are being deployed right now slowly because technology takes time. And it's a great thing because people have been talking about it, but we're actually the first to implement it. And so this is really good because you take the skill sets that you have from one part of the world to another, and it's become a great part of the world that I've been talking about, because unfortunately people might have lizards in their luggage and sending them overseas, and vice versa coming in here, which could impact our multi-billion-dollar agricultural industry.
You have mentioned the word transferable skill. I don't know, who's been counting? A lot. And so let's talk about that, because clearly you've made transitions throughout your career, and you're still an early mid-career researcher? Early?
I think I'm early still. I'm not that old yet.
So, you know, there are women in this room that are from a range of stages in their careers as well. And so I just want to kind of understand a little bit from you in terms of, I guess, how do you find your path, right? How do you even know you have transferable skills? Where do they get transferred to? How do we as women have the confidence to move? Like, how did you find your path? Or how did somebody help you find your path?
Well, it was very depressing post-PhD when I couldn't find a job. I got to tell you that. And like I said, I removed doctor, I removed masters, I removed all of that. I even tried to get a job in a pet store and I got declined, and I'd worked in a zoo. I mean, come on. It was really depressing. It was very depressing. I've just been really honest with you. And so fortunately I had a colleague who was able to let me know of an opportunity that came up, and I was like, okay, so this is not my dream job, but this is going to help me grow in ways that I've never thought possible. And especially while I was pregnant, I was like, I'm about to take on all this illegal wildlife training, trafficking, scanning, 3D x-rays while pregnant. That was also really scary as well. I guess the fact that being able to live, like earn money, was a big driver of that, and not having that support in the marine world. And then once I started that other side, it was like, this is good, but I'm still really interested in this. So I'm just going to create my own path. Like, I've set up projects, not funded, but I think because I love doing what I do, I work basically all the time. If I got paid for how much I work, I'd be so rich. It would be really nice. But the thing is, I don't care because I love doing what I do, and then sharing this knowledge is important. So I guess the thing is, the big, big take home for you from this is that be you. And this is not corny, but be you because everyone else is taken. Okay, Professor Veronica Powers from Macquarie University taught me that. She's very smart. And you just need to do your thing, because it shows when you're not being you. And by doing the things you like and surrounding yourselves with other people who are similar to you, they'll help you lift. They'll lift you up. You need to be around those people who will help lift. If you're with people who don't help you lift, not cool. And we've all know those people around us. You need to be with those people who are going to help lift you. You're all here today learning, and maybe you need a mentor, which would be a nice segue to the next session too, because mentors are really, really important, and I didn't know that I needed one. Yeah. And now I'm just being asked to be a mentor as well. And then I was like, am I able to be a mentor? And then with time, your leadership does start to show, like we saw with Kathy Foley. She's awesome. And she's a pretty powerful woman, and I've seen her do amazing things. And so when we have someone like that to look up to, as well as I met Professor Genevieve Bell at the VC of ANU on Monday. She had a whole half an hour for me. I thought that was very nice. I mean, this is someone who's at the top of the university hanging out with a loser like me. How nice is that? that says a lot about that person. And so that energized me to know that they have time for someone like me. And that's very special. So that says a lot.
Thank you. I'm going to open up to questions on the floor, but I just really wanted to reflect on your last point there around, how we choose security over being bold and how we don't see our own power. And eventually over time, our careers, we build this power. And so all the women in this room, they're powerful and extraordinary women, but you have to see yourself that way, right?
Yes, you do. You just need a little bit of, and I think maybe this has come with age, like honestly, because I was never like this. Once I hit 36, I'm still 36, but it was in the last year, I'm like, I don't care. And I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And so with time, but if a few years back, I would never be able to be like that. Trust me. So I don't know.
Thank you. Let's open it up to questions.
Hi, thank you. Fabulous story. I love your energy. Just imagine that if you could have a waterside chat with a whale and understand it, and thinking about the life of a whale and all of the human interaction, observation, what do you think that whale would tell you?
That you're planting a lot of different challenges for us on the Humpback Highway. Can you just move a few things and stop being so loud? Because I just want to hear a really sexy repertoire of Barry White or something. I'm just thinking of Barry White with sounds. But that's maybe what I would say. Again, anthropomorphizing, don't freak out, scientists. But I think that they would probably say that, can you just clean up your act? Because there's a lot of stuff here and I don't want my calf to be entangled in nets, and I just want to hang out and just have fun and not have to be worried by getting hit by a ship. And as a scientist, we know all of these things happen. Like you probably order things online. That comes from a ship. And that's okay. I'm not here pointing the finger at shipping industry. We just need to work out ways to work better together. And maybe that comes through sensing. See what I've done there?
Any more questions?
I think everyone's bamboozled by the whale sounds.
Yeah, they really do.
Have you observed any whale behaviors which might be related to climate change or human activities?
Yes, so for whales, well, unfortunately last year in Sydney Harbour there was a whale entangled in fishing gear. I don't know if you saw it, but it was literally a disentanglement effort going on in Sydney Harbour for over 2 days, and it was, people wanted to know about it, so I was doing a lot of talking about what it was going on. But when I heard that whale breathe, I'd never heard a whale make that sound before. So usually they come up and they go, but this whale sounded, and I, again, very mindful not to anthropomorphize, but it just sounded exhausted. It sounded like this. It was like a sound. And I was like, I've never heard that before. Is this an example of an animal that's really just had it? And then also the whales feeding in our waters more often, we're observing that more often, may be reflective of climatic changes, meaning that food might be more favourable here, maybe something down south might not be as favourable for them. We need sea ice for Antarctic krill, and also sea ice to reflect the heat from the earth. And if we lose sea ice with global warming, we reduce krill homes and food for whales. So it is a bit of a depressing story, but it's a story we all need to know about.
I saw another question over this side. Yes?
Oh, thank you so much. You are an amazing communicator, by the way. But asking for a friend, a parent of a 17-year-old who's interested in marine science.
We love that.
Just right here in Sydney.
Yes.
I loved your take on citizen science because it's a way to widen the net. What might be some suggestions for a young person that's interested in there so that we can kind of keep shepherding them down the path of amazing research like what you're doing?
Oh, can I just say we love mums who are of a 17-year-old. If you're a humpback whale, you don't ever have to look after teenagers, by the way, because they leave at after 1 year old. But essentially, the reason why I got into doing citizen science, or at least assisting with it, is because when I first was on that cliff off here in Sydney, tracking using the theodolite, I was sitting next to a gentleman called Wayne Reynolds and a few others there. And he had been sitting there for 20 plus years. Obviously, he went home to sleep. But he had been seeing things that was amazing. And I spent hours with him and I'm like, Wayne, how come this stuff's not written up? Oh, yeah, I don't know, bloody whales, whatever. He's a whale Grinch and I love it. And that was a turning point for me to go, these people are dedicating all this time and all this energy and resources, not being paid. They're standing on a cliff. It is freezing most of the time they're there. They're just dedicated. And they were able to document the recovery of the East Coast humpback whale population post-whaling. Things like Wild Sydney Harbour, which is using social media. Your daughter's probably on social media, but I for the good. That's a great way of us using platforms that people are having access to, but the younger generation have access to. I think the younger generation need to be connected with scientists like us so they can see what they can be. When David Attenborough goes, it's going to be awful, but he was the person who I grew up seeing. I gave a talk in Canberra on Friday night about my Maltese and Italian heritage. And then I talked about growing up in Canberra and not seeing anyone like me on TV. I saw Ranger Stacey. Ranger Stacey's great, but she's not ethnic, is she? So I was like, can I be like Ranger Stacey, this little Italian Maltese girl on the farm going, can I? So she needs to be connected with some of these amazing scientists doing great things on social media. That's a great start. There's also places like iNaturalist. Depending on where you are, there's some great resources that are out there. But just even emailing. You know how many people, mothers, have reached out to me and I've taken the time to mentor them? And then I get these beautiful messages like, thank you so much for talking to so-and-so. They've now started a biology degree. And that is the thing that keeps me going. I save those messages because that for me is just life-changing. It's just incredible. Even at the Eureka Awards last year, these young girls had my book and I went in for this science communication thing. I didn't win it. And so that night, and then I was reflecting on it, and then I saw these two girls with my Oceans at Night book, and I was like, that there is the very special thing that has made me feel just incredible. And I'll never forget that. And I saw that girl the other day at her school and I signed the book again. So we need people like you to help inspire that next gen, and we will be here as well. Just reach out because you never know. People like me might write back.
Hello. Is it on? Yeah, thank you very much for that inspiring talk. Well, it's a nice segue to, connecting with the next generation. My question is through, might be a controversial question, but in light of all the things that we've seen happen in terms of rejections in the Illawarra and Hunter region to the offshore wind farm, and what they're actually, my daughter came home one day, this was last year, and she was drawing a picture with, obviously wind farm, and there was a few whales upside down asking for help. And then she said that that's what the teachers are telling them, and they're watching BTN, so offshore wind farm kill whales. So what would you say to them? Like, what do you come around this sort of challenge that we're facing?
Two things. BTN, Behind the News. We used to watch it on 11 o'clock every Thursday. They'd wheel out the TV back in the day. BTN's usually really good and informed. I have spoken to BTN a few times, but not on that issue. But I would say that there's misinformation there. I don't work for anyone, literally, except for the illegal wildlife trafficking thing. But what I know is that with the wind farms and whales, there has been a lot of miscommunication. And that is a fabulous example of why we need real scientists talking to the general public so we're informed. When you're telling me about what your daughter's drawing, I see that kind of impact as a result of ship strike as well and fishing gear entanglement. So that's happening already. But when we do anything in the ocean in Australian waters, it needs to be assessed as per the Environmental Biodiversity and the EPBC Act, our environmental legislation. You can't just go into the ocean and do something in Australia and not worry about our matters of national environmental significance. And whales draw in a lot of money economically to Australia. So would we want to hurt whales? No. And so what that means is that before anything goes on, we need to make sure that the science is in place to protect our animals. So I would say this is where we need really good examples of good communication to make sure that we're not instilling fear, but to have some grounded discussion, okay? Because the science is not quite there. We also don't know about what happens beyond the humpback whale further out to sea, and that would be a wonderful opportunity to fund some science so we can learn more. In fact, that's what we're going to try and do as well, to build on our knowledge of those species that we don't see but occur in our waters.
Thank you, everybody, for your questions. And thank you so much, Dr. Vanessa Pirotta. I liked what you said before about how we have to see ourselves in these scientists as well. So getting out there and talking to people, in the last panel with Joe, our fabulous panel spoke about how do we do that as well. And it's just being relatable, isn't it? It's ordinary
We're
people
all
doing
human.
extraordinary things. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. And please give Vanessa a round of applause and thank her for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.